All right, Commissioner, you're all set to go.
Excellent, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July 10th, 2025 Connecticut Paid Leave Board of Directors meeting. I'm Michelle Gilman, and I will be chairing the meeting today. I would like to call the meeting to order. It is 9:03 a.m. Amber, would you please take attendance?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Ava Bermudez Zimmerman.
Present.
I do not believe Isha Canada will be joining us, but I will circle back. Adrian Cochran. Don't believe Adrian is joining us, but I will circle back. Andrea Comer will not be joining us today. Michelle Gilman.
Present.
Sheila Hummel.
Present.
Ellen McKitterick.
Present.
Eleanor Michael will not be joining us today. David Salazar Austin.
Present.
Mike Soltis.
Present.
Molly will not be joining us today. Holly Williams.
Present.
Janae Woods Weber.
Present.
And Justin will not be joining us today. Just going to circle back really quick. Has Isha Canada joined us? She has not. And Adrian Cochran? Adrian Cochran has not yet joined us, but we do have a quorum. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amber. I would like to thank also the members of the public for joining us this morning. And we may have additional guests joining us through the course of the meeting as well. And so want to acknowledge any members of the legislature that might join us. And again, certain members of the public and all members of the public who have joined us or are viewing this meeting today. First order of business, I would like to ask for a review of the June 12th, 2025 meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or discussion? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions? I will abstain as I was not at the last meeting. And the motion carries. Thank you so much, everyone. Next item of business, Michael, will you please lead us in the discussion of the proposed revisions to the consolidated policies posted for public comment?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Can folks see the PowerPoint?
Yes,
We can see your screen.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the two agenda items that I'm going to be talking about today are both involving the consolidated policies. This first agenda topic relates to the revisions that the board had voted to post for public notice and comment back in the May board meeting. Just as a recap, these are the topics that were addressed in those revisions. It's the document that's labeled Consolidated Policies Finalized in the email that Stephanie sent over to everyone. So not going to go through all these items because this is the same as we discussed in the May board meeting. As I said, they were posted for public notice and comment. That comment period closed last month. We did receive one comment related to the revisions, and it was just asking that we confirm that the definition of bonding leave in the policies is consistent with the Connecticut FMLA statutes. So we did review the definition and ultimately decided that there were no changes necessary to the language in the policies. Just as a little bit of a recap, there's sort of two reasons why we define bonding leave in our policies. The first one is that technically bonding leave isn't a statutory term. It's more of the way that everyone in the industry refers to the type of leave. In the statute, it actually only refers to upon the birth of a son or daughter or upon the placement of a son or daughter with the employee for adoption or foster care. So bonding leave is just meant to make it clear to the public who may be not as familiar with FMLA or paid leave laws what we mean when we talk about bonding leave. The other thing that the definition is trying to do is to incorporate both the language from the statute as well as the language from the Connecticut FMLA regulation related to bonding leave. And the big addition there as far as the regulation is that it makes it clear, at least with respect to adoption and foster care, bonding leave can include pre-placement activities, the types of activities that may be necessary for you to adopt or to start foster care for a child. These activities can include counseling sessions, court appearances, consulting with attorneys or doctors, things of that nature. What we wanted to make sure is that the definition included both the statutory definition as well as those regulatory definitions found in the FMLA statutes and regulations. So as I said, no changes are necessary to that definition based on the comment. However, we did make a couple of updates, not based on public comments, but based on committee members' comments in the Policy and Personnel Committee meeting. The committee just had talked about whether it was necessary to include definitions that were already in the statute, whether we should also include those in the consolidated policies. The ultimate conclusion was that yes, it would be helpful because it would, if only to prevent members of the public from having to flip back and forth between the definitions in the statute and then go back to the definitions of consolidated policies and go back and forth if they're not sure where something is defined. So the decision was made to, why don't we include the definitions from statute in the consolidated policies, so it's a sort of one-stop shop for them. So for those definitions, which are primarily around the different family relationships, as well as a definition of healthcare provider, it essentially quotes the definition from the statute as well as cites to that definition, should someone want to look at the statute itself. So those were the revisions that were posted. This is normally the part of the meeting where I would ask the board to officially adopt the policy. However, we do need 2/3 of the voting members to be present in order to officially adopt policies. So what my recommendation would be is just table that for a future board meeting to officially adopt it. However, happy to take any questions or comments the board may have now before that vote.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions for Michael on the policy proposal? All right, so hearing none, we can take a vote to table this policy discussion, or take to table a vote for the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you so much for the presentation, Michael. And next we will move on to next item on the agenda. Jessica, will you please provide the outreach and engagement quarterly update?
Actually, Commissioner, if I could interrupt, we do have one other policy discussion that Michael will talk about that we need that we can vote on.
Okay,
It
my
needs
apologies.
a simple majority.
Yep, so I see that. My apologies. So this is regarding the revisions to the consolidated policies regarding Public Act 25-174. Michael, my apologies for skipping that item. Michael, if you'll please proceed.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it wasn't intentional. It's just sort of the quirk of the timing of the calendar that we had 2 revisions to the same document back to back. So not a problem. I'm going to share my screen again. So these revisions are related to the bill that passed the legislature at the end of session this last year. It's under Public Act 25-174. The document that Stephanie had shared is labeled Consolidated Policies Draft PA 25-174. As far as our program, there are basically 2 elements to the law. The first one is the coverage of employees of public school operators and non-public elementary and secondary schools if they are in a position that does not require certification under Chapter 166 of the Connecticut General Statutes. So this is going to be primarily a lot of the non-teaching positions, although there may be some folks who are involved in education as well. The people who are in positions that require certification are still exempt, although some of them may be able to negotiate via collective bargaining process that's already been a part of our program since the beginning. But this would be a new form of coverage for the non-certified folks as of 10/1 of this year. The other element of that law relates to the same group of employees, but it allows the authority to adopt a different and alternate calculation for the base period as well as base weekly earnings for these school employees. And the intent of that change is to avoid different outcomes in eligibility or paid leave benefit amounts based on how employees' pay might be structured for this particular population of employees. Before I talk about the revisions that we're recommending, I do want to address that last point just for a second and why it might be necessary. So it is our understanding that for many school employees, they may work only during the school year and have the summers off, and they may get options on how to be paid for that salary for the work they perform for those 10 months of the year. So what we wanted to avoid have happen is people who elected different payment arrangements ending up with different paid leave outcomes from their coworkers who chose a different option. So what I have on the screen is sort of 3 examples of employees who work the same job, have the same annual earnings. I just used the example of $30,000, only worked during the school year, but chose different ways to receive that pay. And what would happen if we don't have an alternate calculation for them? So here on the left side, in the first column is employee number 1. They work the 10 months of the school year, but they choose to receive their pay over 12 months. So it breaks down to $2,500 every month. Pretty even, easy to understand. Employee number 2 works those 10 months of the school year and only is paid for those 10 months of the school year. So they don't get paid in July and August. They get paid $3,000 for every other month. This may not always break down exactly this way. Some folks may get a paycheck in August, may get one less paycheck in June, but just for the sake of this example, we're assuming it breaks down fairly evenly based on the months. Employee number 3 is given a third option, and they choose to be paid over the 10 months for the regular monthly pay, but then get a balloon payment at the start of the summer that covers them for the summer. So no payments for them in July and August, and a larger payment in June because they're getting their typical June plus their August and July together with that paycheck. So you can see at the bottom of that chart, all 3 employees receive at the end of the year $30,000. All 3 employees make the exact same contribution of $150 to the Connecticut Paid Leave Trust Fund. In reality, we would assume they would have the same outcome, but as you move along to the right side of the page, we can see what the calculation would end up based on these different pay structures. So employee number 1, because they're evenly spaced, they have the same $7,500 in every quarter of the base period, which is what we use to calculate the benefit. Employee number 2 has 3 quarters of $9,000 and 1 quarter with only $3,000. And then employee number 3, 1 quarter of $2,500, 2 quarters of $7,500, and then 1 quarter of $12,500. I put in bold the highest quarters because that's what we use, the 2 highest quarters, in order to calculate a benefit. And you can see sort of very different outcomes as to what those 2 quarters would result in. Sort of jumping to the end of the day, if we use the same calculation as we use for all other employees, you'd have 3 employees with very different paid leave weekly benefits. Employee number 1 gets a little bit under $550 a week. Employee number 3 gets almost $700 a week. So about $150 difference between these 3 employees who otherwise are situated the same. They just chose to get paid in a different way. So that's an outcome we would like to avoid if at all possible. So based on that, the revisions that we are recommending are a calculation of those for those employees of the base weekly earnings and eligibility that averages the annual income they receive over the 4 quarters, which would result in consistency for those employees who happen to work the same job and have the same pay as their coworkers. As part of that, we would not factor in any time that the employee is not working. So if they're a new hire, we wouldn't average them out for quarters that they're not employed with that school. It also wouldn't impact the calculation that applies to any certified school employees that happen to negotiate inclusion via collective bargaining agreement. That's mostly because the statute doesn't allow us to do that at the moment. So it's not an intentional thing that we're doing to avoid having them have a similar calculation. We put in the policy that private plans are allowed to use the same calculation that we're planning on doing in the public program, but if they want to use a standard one that applies to everyone, we would allow that as well. And the last element of that change is just to say that it applies only to employees who work during a school year and who are given a choice in payment options. If you're in a position that works year round, it wouldn't apply to you. And if you worked in a school year, but you're only given one choice, then it also wouldn't apply to you. It's really meant to cover those situations where someone may choose different options on how they're being paid. The other element of these revisions relates to giving us the right to create an employment verification form, particularly for these school employers, because of both this need to average their salary across their year, as well as to confirm whether they're in a certified position or not, because that also impacts their eligibility for the program. There were also a couple minor edits, not related to substance, but just because of a change in terminology. Previously, the statute used the phrase local or regional boards of education to refer to this group of employers. It now uses the public school operators as a definition. So we just need to update any references to local regional boards of education to be public school operators. And also because they slotted in a definition in the statute, that did change the numbering in the citations a little bit. So there are some edits related to that. If the board votes to post the policies for public notice and comment in this meeting, we would be on pace to have the policies officially adopted in September, which would put us in a good position before the October 1st effective date. So Happy to have the board vote to officially post these for comment, but before that, I'm also happy to take any questions or comments that the board may have.
Any questions from the board? Michael, thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to authorize the authority to post the notice about the proposed revisions to the consolidated policies relating to Public Act 25-174 for public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you again, Michael, for your discussion and presentation on that new policy proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now moving to Jessica. Will you please provide the Outreach and Engagement Quarterly Report?
Yes, thank you.
We can see your screen, Jess.
Thank you. So to start, as always, I like to just give a snapshot of where we've been out in the community and what we have coming up. So as you can see, the month of June was very busy. We were out and about quite a bit, and we do have some great events lined up for July and August. We are constantly adding new ones. I won't go through the entire list, but just wanted to call out a couple of things on here. In June, we were at the Baby Bonds Ambassador event, which was great. It was a wonderful opportunity to connect with other community leaders and state leaders, and Aaron and I attended that, so we were pleased to be there. We also attended the City Seed Farmers Market in New Haven. That was our first time at that event, so we were grateful to City Seed for partnering with us on that. And then we have just a few other things to call out. The Manchester Chamber of Commerce Business Expo coming up towards the end of this month. So we continue to be engaged in outreach with employers as well as employees. So if you're out and see us around, please stop by and say hello. And as always, we really do appreciate the suggestions from the board of any events you're aware of that you think would be beneficial for us. We've attended quite a number that have come our way from board members, so please do continue to share those with us. I wanted to give an update on our community education coordinators. So this information on the screen covers the first quarter, the January through March time period. So that was really their first quarter of being out and about in the community after completing the extensive training that they went through at the end of the year and in the beginning of January. So our 7 community education coordinators attended or hosted 85 events in that 3-month period. That included workshops, visiting businesses, providing trainings, attending PTA meetings, etc. And they were at events with a total attendance of over 5,000. So we're very pleased with that. They also provided direct assistance to 48 individuals. The bulk of those was over the phone, but some in person as well. So again, we're pleased. Some of that was just answering questions. A number of them were also help with applications. I just included one quote that was provided from someone who received application assistance from the Center for Latino Progress, which you can read, but it was great to see someone who otherwise would not have been aware of our program, who through this partnership was able to actually use the benefit to go and take care of her daughter. Some additional efforts that have come out of this so far. Aaron interviewed on one of our CECs, the Windham Chamber of Commerce has a radio show, so Aaron interviewed on that show. The organizations have been modifying some of our outreach materials to better connect with their audiences. They share them with us so that we can give our approval before they produce anything, but that's been well received. And they continue to share our info through their social media channels, newsletters, etc. We did issue a press release on this, which is linked at the bottom, and we are excited to see the results from the second quarter. Their reports from that are due at the end of this month, so we'll have some more data soon, but we're very pleased so far. In regards to the coverage for non-certified school employees, which, Michael just spoke about what those changes are, which we're all aware of. But I wanted to give this update in terms of what outreach we are doing in order to reach these employees who will become covered effective October 1st. We've been working closely with the State Department of Education to confirm who is covered and also how to best make outreach to these schools. They've been very helpful in providing us with an outreach list. We also are conducting outreach to labor unions and associations that represent the different types of schools, such as the Association of Independent Schools. We have some new materials that we've created and or are working on. So a one-pager that just summarizes the language that passed. We also have a one-pager for workers so that they can kind of identify who they are, whether they're certified or non-certified, and whether they work for a public school operator or a non-public school operator, and then see what specifically applies to them. And then we're also identifying website updates that will need to be made and working on implementing those so that they're ready to go. There was some media coverage around this, which is linked there on both Fox 61 and WFSB. Finally, we are hosting a series of webinars. We're starting out at the end of this month with a couple of webinars geared toward employers to help them understand what this change means for them and what they need to do in order to become compliant. And then starting in August, we have a number of webinars that will be geared toward the workers. So we are blasting this out all over the place as much as we can to hopefully have some good attendance at these events. And then the last update I wanted to provide, we have been working on a redesign of our Contact Us page on our website. We did a pretty comprehensive analysis on data from the first quarter of the year to see what questions people were submitting, and then from our pick list of contact reasons, what they were selecting and whether those were truly in line with what their question was, or whether they needed to be kind of reclassified. And so based on that, we decided that it's time for us to take a new look at this page and streamline it to provide a better user experience, and also to allow our team to collect more detailed information so that we can triage their issues a bit more easily and quickly. So we have a kind of a two-part process that we're working on. We are planning to employ a role-based system on our contact form. Right now, there's just a long pick list of close to 20 different options. But what we are going to do is have the person first identify who they are. So an individual or potential applicant, an employer, a third-party payroll provider. And then based on what they select, they'll see different contact reasons that align with who they are. We do have a working group with representatives from all of our teams that are providing input into this. So that's one part of it. And then the other part is we're also building what I'm referring to as kind of a self-help feature, where we can encourage folks to seek out and give them direct information on the answer to their question. So try to provide them some guidance before they actually get to that point of filling out the Contact Us form. And then also giving them some guidance on what contact reason to select if they do end up filling out the form, again, in the interest of just allowing us to triage these more quickly. This is a work in progress, so nothing finalized, but just to give you an idea of what this feature will look like. So we'll first ask the person to select the role that most closely aligns to who they identify with. And then we'll give them the pick list of common questions. And then from there, we'll display an answer that will give them a bit more information, as well as links to the even more detailed information that they can find on the site. So just for this example, if the person selected, am I eligible for benefits, they'd get that brief answer of the criteria to be eligible with links to where they can find out, oh, I'm not sure if I work for a covered employer. They can link right over to that page and find out more about who is covered. And then if you still have a question, please select use the contact form and select whatever we'd like them to select. So again, something that we've been working on for a little while. We hope to have this part of it in place by the end of the summer, and then the further redesign of the Contact Us page will continue on into the fall. That is my update for today. Happy to answer any questions.
Jessica, thanks so much for that comprehensive report. Are there any questions or comments? Jessica, I'll note that I'm really impressed by all of the events that the team has done. I also recognize that many of those events are not during the week, 9 to 5. They are on the weekends. They are in the evenings to reach people where they are and in their community. So again, congratulations to the team. Great work in reaching folks. 5,000 estimated individuals is really impressive. And then I love the outreach and improvements on the website as well. I think those will be really impactful given the wide range of services that we offer through the authority. So thanks again for all of those notes that you presented on today. Really represents just a portion of all the outreach that the team at large is doing. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So next we'll move on to the committee reports. Mike, would you please provide the policy and personnel report?
Yes, good morning. Our committee met last week and we discussed the 2 consolidated policy issues that Michael told us about just a few minutes ago, those that had been posted and those that now will be posted. We also discussed the function of board officers, and probably be hearing more of that down the road. And that was it. And our next meeting is September 2nd. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. And Molly, would you please provide the outreach and engagement report? Oh, actually, Molly, I don't think is here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I can provide a brief update. So the Outreach and Engagement Committee were on the every other month schedule, so we did not meet in June, but we will be meeting in July.
Great, thank you. And Holly, would you please provide the Finance and Audit Committee report?
Sure. The committee did not meet in June. However, our next meeting is on July 25th, and Dave is going to share the financials with the board now.
Thank you, Holly.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Holly. And please proceed, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, you can see my screen, correct?
We can see your screen, Dave.
Thank you for the confirmation, Amber. Okay, we are going to go over the results for the month of May and through the month of May year to date. So we'll start off with our operating account. Results for the operating account month to date were almost a negative $1.4 million. That was just under a $450,000 positive variance. The $1.4 million is a little higher than usual because we had 3 payroll periods in the month of May. That happens a few times during the year, and this was one of those months. So that's why it's a little higher than usual. The other reason it's a little higher than usual is our software licenses were higher than what we budgeted. That's strictly a timing difference. We paid a platform expense for Druck in the month of May. It had been budgeted earlier in the year, and we paid it in May. So, and as you can see, we're still ahead of budget for the year. So there's no concerns there. Year to date, our activity is just over $3.1 million. There is a negative $339,000 variance. It's negative because, as you may remember, we did not transfer $5 million in the administrative fee in the prior quarter because we had enough money in the operating reserves. But the good news is that expense-wise, we are ahead fiscal year to date by over $4.4 million with really no significant negative variations in any of the expense categories, with the exception of the fund recovery fee, which has a negative $85,000 variance. But that's actually what I like to call a high quality problem, because it's not even a problem, because it's more than offset by the fund recovery penalties we have, which are over $587,000, and which leads to an over $240,000 variance. So end result for operating results is as you see them, no really big changes or surprises since we spoke last month. Moving on to bond funds, we had over $32,000 of activity for the month of May. For fund recovery development, that was over a $67,000 variance. And year to date, we've spent over $908,000. We have over $191,000 variance year to date. And we expect it to be about that by the end of the fiscal year, which was 10 days ago. So we'll be reporting more on that officially next month, but we will have a preview of June results for you in a little bit. Bond results, I should say, the bond money we spent this month resulted in the remaining bond funds to be $1,478,000. That's still available to the authority for any future projects that we'll be spending on, including fund recovery and possibly some others as the authority deems it to be so. Moving on to contribution activity, we had almost a negative $43.4 million of activity in the month of May. That did result in a $6.5 million negative variance. As I've been saying for a few months now, that negative variance is driven by the benefits paid because the run rate is higher than what we budgeted about or over a year ago. The benefits that were paid this month were over $44.4 million. We did reimburse Aflac on a weekly schedule, and this was a month where we reimbursed them for 5 weeks instead of 4. It's just how the calendar works. The run rate per week is holding steady at $8.9 million a week on average. In April, it was also $8.9 million. So we're trending pretty steadily in the last couple of months. Contributions for the month were just over $395,000, slightly better than budget. All other items were also above budget, including investment income. You might remember last month we were slightly lower than budget, but because last month the contributions came in and they were better than budget, we had more of an investment base, so that bumped the investment income to be higher than budget. Plus, we are still earning at a rate of 4.4%, which was higher than what was budgeted at 4%. Year to date, our activity is just under $57 million. That is a $37.8 million variance. That's less than budget. Again, that is mostly driven by the benefits paid being higher than budgeted. But as you can see, all other items are ahead of budget and still trending the same way that they have been for the prior months. The contribution fund balance at the end of May was just over $623 million. Quick preview for June. Our expenses were $1,457,000. That is higher than usual. We had a lot of vendors pay us because June is our fiscal year end, and nothing motivates vendors like a deadline. So we had a lot of vendors send us bills that perhaps they should have sent us sooner, but they finally did get most of them in by the end of the fiscal year. No unusual types of expenses during the month of June, and we'll go into more detail on that next month. Benefit payments were $36 million for the month. That averages into a weekly run rate of $9 million. So a little higher than we've seen the last 2 months. As far as money coming in, we had $709,000 in contributions, another relatively light month. The next significant month will be in July, when the next quarter is ultimately due for contributions. And our investment income was $2.1 million, around the range where it typically has been. Estimates for the fiscal year end, which, as I mentioned, was June, 10 days ago. We expect our operating activity to come in at $1,680,000. That is a negative $235,000. Again, it's negative because we didn't transfer the $5 million over. And the good news is that we expect to be ahead of budget for expenses by $4.5 million. And that positive run rate, again, continues to be driven by payroll and related expenses, because positions were filled later than expected, and our pension overhead rate was lower than what we budgeted. So those are the two drivers there. And the third driver is that our IT consultant service expenses are coming in lower because most of those expenditures qualified to be paid by bond money. So we used the bond money because we had it. So it didn't come out of the operating budget. And our contribution projection for the end of the year, we expect the activity to come in at about $12.6 million. Again, lower than what we budgeted, again, because of the benefits paid, but we still do expect to have a positive net effect for the contribution account by the end of the year. So those are our results for May and a preview of June. I'm happy to take any questions anybody has at this time.
Thank you so much, Dave.
I think I saw a hand up quickly. I don't know if that was a mistake or on purpose.
No, it's on purpose.
Oh, okay.
It's
Ava.
Eva.
Yes, Ava.
So the 6 million and some change variance because of the bond and the impact that I guess life has on us. Does that change any of our projections? Can you just go back to that? I just want to make sure that despite how much money is coming in from, we're okay, I guess.
Okay. So you're referring to the, you're
You
referring to the
mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
There was, in the beginning part of your presentation, there was a fluctuation in how much money we were getting in. And I think you said bonding, but I'm not sure if you, was it the money that's coming in because of the market, or just a little bit more clarity on there was a negative variance?
Yeah, can I just jump in for a second? So
Yeah.
it's not the bonding. That's pretty static, honestly. We actually got more money in investments. So the money coming in is ahead of budget. The reason that our contribution fund is anticipated to be lower than we budgeted when we finish out the fiscal year is due to higher than expected benefits or higher than budgeted benefits, because, we budgeted that April, May of 2024. So we have been adjusting our sort of actuarial assumptions throughout the year, but the budget is a historical document that didn't get adjusted. So claims are higher, which meant that we end the year with less money than we originally budgeted for. We're still ending the year without having to dip into reserves. Spring is currently working on their projections for this coming year. That report is something that will be presented to Finance at the end of July and the full board in August. But as we've been saying now for a good while, as claims go up, we won't have sort of as much money at the end of the year to put into the reserves. And it is sort of very likely that in the coming years, at some point, we will have to start dipping into those reserves. But that's all kind of when and how much and what that looks like is all very much the subject of active work with a lot of analysis that's going on throughout the month of July. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was a lot clearer. So money coming in is nice and stable, money coming out, who knows, but we're keeping an eye on it.
Yep.
That's it in a nutshell. And the money coming in, just to clarify, does go up on an annual basis. We're seeing increases averaging around, for the last year was about 4 or 5% in terms of contributions coming in.
Thank you again, Dave. Any other questions or clarifications? Excellent. Dave, thank you again for the presentation. I know year end is always a challenge and a busy time. So appreciation to you and your team for walking us through the multiple layers of the budget and our fiscal report. So appreciate the work there.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Erin, would you please provide your CEO report as well? Moving on to our next line of business here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. So a few things just to highlight in addition to all the work that the team has already shared with you. Earlier this spring, the board authorized us to negotiate and enter into a contract with our preferred vendor for the third-party administrator. We did select Aflac. That agreement was finalized and they signed it, or lost track. I think I signed it Monday. It's been a busy week. So we're kind of moving forward with that. Maddie Granado sent out the legislative report last week. It was a really short report. Not as many bills were passed this year as in many years past, and only a couple of them really applied to us. Michael and Jess have talked about the big one in terms of the expansion of the program, but the bond bill also included a bond authorization reduction. Maddie highlighted in the legislative report, basically when the program was first created in 2019, the legislature authorized us for up to $50 million in bond funds. We have never been allocated $50 million. That authorization and allocation are very different things. This year, OFA had asked us how much we've actually used of our allocated money and how much money we anticipated needing in the next couple of years. And we told them that we've used approximately 16 million and we've used or have very concrete plans for the 16 million that have already been allocated to us, and that we anticipate requesting allocation for about another 10 million for projects in the next few years. Knowing that that information was likely to result in a re or deauthorization, but that's kind of the way this all works. So as expected, the bond bill this year included a deauthorization. So instead of having up to 50 million, we have about 26.2, which is perfectly fine and kind of what we were expecting. As you all know, we have to pay back our bond funds. We are unique in that way. And so we're very prudent and fiscally conservative about when we actually use bond funds. So this should all work. I just want to be clear about that in case anyone noticed that in the report and was concerned. And then finally, we are hard at work at the annual report. This will be our second year where the annual report is due in September, where we consolidate the annual report that all quasi-public agencies have to submit and the annual report that we have to submit that is in our own enabling statute. Last year, it was came in at well over 100 pages. because we offer a whole lot of detail. So it's a major undertaking. Jess is leading that. I appreciate all the work, but everybody's involved. There's a lot of charts and graphs going into that. It also includes that actuarial report, which, as I mentioned, will be presented to the board next month, and then that just gets folded right in to the annual report. So stay tuned for more information there, but we do appreciate the opportunity the annual report gives us to really highlight the work that we do, to highlight our initiatives. The theme for this year's report is growth, because that's what we continue to do. So those are the three things that I just wanted to flag, but I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have about those three things or anything else the agency is working on.
Any questions for Erin? All right, seeing none. Erin, thanks again for your report. Really looking forward to seeing the annual report as well. Really a great compilation of all of the activity that the authority and the team does throughout the year. So a great read and a great summary of all the work that this team does to impact Connecticut residents across the state. So looking forward to that and so much more. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, do we have any old business? All right, seeing none, do we have any new business to discuss? All right, and seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we will motion carries, and it is 9:50. The meeting is adjourned. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and a great month ahead. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.